In the quiet, close-knit town of Carnation, Washington, Christmas Eve of 2007 became a day of unimaginable horror. What should have been a night of festive cheer turned into a gruesome nightmare for the Anderson family. This story isn't for the faint-hearted. It's a chilling tale of betrayal, jealousy, and bloodshed within a family that left a permanent scar on the town of Carnation. But why would anyone commit such an unthinkable act against their own family? Let's dive deep into the tragic case of Michelle Anderson, her boyfriend Joseph McEnroe, and the brutal massacre that shocked an entire community. Carnation was a peaceful place, a small town where everyone knew each other, and violent crimes were rare. Residents trusted their neighbors, feeling a unique bond with their community. So when Linda, a friend of Judy Anderson, discovered the Anderson family's horrifying fate 2 days after Christmas, it shattered the town's sense of safety. Families who once left their doors unlocked now looked over their shoulders, haunted by the realization that such horrors could occur in their own neighborhood. The news of the massacre quickly spread, forever altering the town's peaceful atmosphere. Wayne Scott Anderson and his wife Judy were well known and respected in the community. Wayne worked as an engineer at Boeing, providing a stable and comfortable life for his family, while Judy served at the local post office where she befriended Linda, who would later make the devastating discovery. The Andersons had 2 adult children, Scott and Michelle. Scott was married and had 2 young children, Olivia and Nathan, ages 5 and 3. His wife Erica was close to her in-laws, and they enjoyed a harmonious relationship with Scott's parents. Michelle, on the other hand, seemed to be the family's black sheep. Despite receiving financial and emotional support from her parents, she resented them deeply. While Scott had built a stable family life, Michelle lived in a run-down trailer on her parents' property, only a couple hundred yards from their main house. To Michelle, her family's support felt more like a burden than a blessing. Michelle's dissatisfaction was apparent in every aspect of her life. While Scott took pride in his family and job, Michelle struggled to make ends meet. She worked at Target, but it never seemed to be enough. Adding to her frustration was her boyfriend, Joseph McEnroe, who was unemployed, showing no desire to change his situation. The couple's financial instability was a constant source of tension. Living in a deteriorating trailer without much hope for improvement, Michelle felt trapped and angry. Over time, Michelle's resentment toward her family grew. She felt they favored her brother, Scott, and believed they had failed her. While Wayne and Judy had done their best to help Michelle, including allowing her to live rent-free on their property, they had recently informed her she would need to start paying rent. Michelle took this as a betrayal, believing her parents were unfairly treating her compared to Scott, who enjoyed a more prosperous life. Fueled by jealousy and rage, Michelle's resentment grew dangerously close to the breaking point. Michelle's boyfriend, Joseph McEnroe, seemed to mirror her struggles. Born in California, McEnroe had grown up without direction, and by the time he met Michelle, he was adrift. While not inherently violent, he was gullible and easily manipulated, a trait Michelle used to her advantage. Together, they formed a toxic, codependent relationship, which amplified their frustrations and grievances. Joseph's lack of ambition and financial instability matched Michelle's, creating a dynamic that allowed their resentments to fester unchecked. By 2007, Michelle's anger toward her family had reached a boiling point, and with Joseph by her side, she started entertaining the unthinkable. The pair began discussing a disturbing plan to eliminate the perceived obstacles in their lives: Wayne, Judy, Scott, Erica, and the children. In the summer of 2006, McEnroe had purchased 2 firearms, a Smith & Wesson .357 Magnum and a 9mm semi-automatic pistol. These weapons, initially intended for protection or perhaps even sport, would soon become tools in a dark and twisted scheme. Michelle and Joseph concocted a brutal plan to eliminate her family. Their misguided logic suggested that by removing Wayne and Judy, they could gain financial freedom and rid themselves of the resentment that poisoned their lives. As Christmas Eve approached in 2007, Michelle and Joseph resolved to execute their plan. The festive season brought families together, and the Andersons had planned a holiday celebration. Judy was wrapping presents for her grandchildren, completely unaware that her daughter and her boyfriend harbored deadly intentions. On December 24th, Michelle and Joseph arrived at the Anderson family home, their weapons hidden and their minds set on a course of violence. Judy was busy preparing for Christmas, and Wayne was likely looking forward to spending time with his grandchildren. In a chilling moment of betrayal, Michelle pulled her firearm on her unsuspecting father. But in a cruel twist of fate, the gun jammed and she couldn't fire. Realizing that something was wrong, Joseph stepped in and shot Wayne in the head, instantly ending his life. Hearing the gunshot, Judy rushed into the room, horrified at the scene before her. She begged Joseph to spare her life, but he showed no mercy. After apologizing, he pressed the gun to her head and pulled the trigger, silencing her pleas forever. In that one brutal moment, Michelle and Joseph had crossed the point of no return. But there were more members of the Anderson family yet to arrive, unaware of the nightmare that awaited them. 45 minutes after the horrific killings of Wayne and Judy, Scott arrived with his wife Erica and their 2 young children, Olivia and Nathan. As Scott entered the house, he immediately sensed that something was wrong. But before he had a chance to react, Michelle confronted him, gun in hand. Realizing what was happening, Scott bravely tried to protect his family, rushing toward his sister in an attempt to disarm her. However, Michelle was quicker, and she fired multiple rounds at her brother. One bullet hit Scott in the neck, killing him instantly. Erica, witnessing the horror unfold before her, was struck twice in the gunfire but miraculously managed to survive the initial attack. In the chaos, she spotted a cordless phone nearby and, despite her injuries, crawled over the sofa to reach it. Erica's last act of bravery was to call emergency services. Though she was severely injured, she managed to dial 911, hoping against hope that help would arrive in time. But just moments later, McEnroe entered the room, taking the phone from Erica's trembling hands. After apologizing, he removed the phone's batteries, crushing any chance of help reaching them in time. Erica's courage was ultimately in vain, as McEnroe then ended her life with a final, brutal shot to the head. The 911 operator, who had heard nothing but faint background noise and raised voices, sent 2 officers to the scene. However, when the officers arrived, they found the front gate locked and, hearing no signs of immediate disturbance, turned back without investigating further. This missed opportunity allowed Michelle and Joseph to continue with their gruesome plan, free from interruption. With Scott and Erica gone, the only remaining members of the Anderson family were Olivia and Nathan, aged 5 and 3. In a decision that reveals the full extent of their twisted minds, Michelle and Joseph chose not to spare the young children. Michelle, fearing that they might grow up to testify against her, rationalized the need to kill them as well. Yet when the moment came, Michelle couldn't bring herself to pull the trigger. Instead, she turned to McEnroe, pressuring him to carry out the final act. Though reluctant, McEnroe yielded, apologizing to Olivia before ending her life. He then turned to 3-year-old Nathan, who, heartbreakingly, had been playing with the batteries removed from the cordless phone. McEnroe later claimed that the young boy looked at him with understanding, as though he knew what was about to happen. In a final act of unimaginable cruelty, McEnroe shot Nathan, leaving no survivors in the Anderson family except Michelle and himself. It wasn't until 2 days later, on December 26th, that the massacre was discovered. Linda, Judy's close friend, noticed Judy hadn't shown up to work, a rare occurrence. Concerned, Linda drove to the Anderson home, only to find a chilling scene. Looking through a window, she spotted 2 bodies on the floor, initially believing them to be Wayne and Judy. When she entered the house, she was met with the full horror of the murders. She immediately called the police, reporting that her dear friend and her family had been brutally killed. By the time police arrived, Michelle and McEnroe had returned to the scene, pretending to be oblivious to the tragedy. They claimed they were on their way to Las Vegas to get married, attempting to appear innocent. But under the weight of police questioning, the facade quickly crumbled. Michelle eventually broke down, confessing to the entire plot, including her grievances against her family and the twisted justification for her actions. In the aftermath of their arrest, both Michelle Anderson and Joseph McEnroe faced charges of 6 counts of first-degree homicide. Michelle in particular expressed remorse, referring to herself as a monster and suggesting she deserved the death penalty. McEnroe, who initially denied responsibility, eventually admitted his involvement. His defense later argued that Michelle had manipulated him and that he had acted under her influence, though his behavior in court, where he laughed and displayed erratic behavior, made this argument unconvincing to the jury. The trials of Michelle and Joseph were heavily covered by the media, drawing widespread public attention and debate. Michelle's trial began in early 2016, with the prosecution laying out the sequence of events that led to the brutal massacre. They argued that the evidence clearly showed Michelle's intent, framing her as the mastermind behind the murders. The jury heard her emotional confession and was presented with details of her toxic relationship with McEnroe, her deep-seated jealousy toward her brother, and her belief that her family had wronged her. In March 2016, Michelle was convicted on all counts of aggravated homicide in the first degree, joining McEnroe in facing a life sentence without the possibility of parole. The judge ruled out the death penalty, concluding that life imprisonment would be a fitting punishment for the pair. Michelle now serves her sentence in the Washington Correction Center for Women, while McEnroe is held at the Washington State Penitentiary. Strict rules around inmate communications mean that the two likely have no contact with each other, leaving them alone with the memory of their crimes. For Michelle and McEnroe, life behind bars may be a daily reminder of the horrific choices they made that Christmas Eve. The community of Carnation, forever scarred by the murders, still feels the lingering trauma of that night. For Linda and others who knew and loved the Anderson family, the memories of those lost haunt them daily. The once closed town now remembers the Andersons not only as neighbors and friends, but as tragic victims of a senseless, brutal act. The Christmas family massacre in Carnation is a reminder of the unimaginable horrors that can sometimes hide behind closed doors. The lives lost that night and the impact on the community serve as a haunting legacy of a tragedy that no one could have anticipated. If you'd like to hear more true crime stories like this one, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, give us a like, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more cases that delve into the dark and often shocking realities of life.